2. So, water, not new make or gin or anything like that. Just making sure I've drunk quite a bit of water just to make sure that my mouth is clean, clear, because I did the quite heavily peated one. Now, I've kind of cocked up a little bit in that I put the Annandale before this one, forgetting that it was peated. I thought this was going to be, I thought it was the unpeated version, so I thought, yes, it's going to be a high alcohol percentage, but I know this one that I'm going to have now is peated, so I need to have that second. So I kind of dropped the ball a bit, but that's by the by. Anyway, so this is another donation, and this is from somebody who I've not covered yet, a guy called Will Knock, who got in touch with me and offered me a couple of donations. So he very, very kindly sent them through the post, and unfortunately him sending them was actually delayed by a pretty bad event in his life. He really didn't need to send them to me with everything that was going on, but he still did. Will, I really appreciate it, mate. I really hope everything, if it's not sorted out, sorts out very quickly, you get back to some kind of normality. So the first one that he sent me, of, was it 3 or 4, I can't remember, is Ailsa Bay. So he sent me it in that, you should be able to see. I've just realised that there's sellotape on the top, so I shall do that away from the microphone. But ordinarily, if you found it on a shelf, it would look like that. And you're looking at about 50 quid, it seems to be selling for online. Now, Ailsa Bay was built by the William Grant and Sons. William Grant and Sons, the company responsible for Glenfiddich, Balvenie, and quite a few blends, the main one being Grant's, obviously. And it was built at the Girvan Distillery. So the Girvan Distillery is here, and Girvan I covered off last week, I think, in fact, with a donation from Malt and Mike, another donation from Mike Little. Now, as I discussed when I talked about the Girvan, the Girvan factory, the Girvan Distillery is essentially a factory. It is a factory making bucket loads of whiskey to go into grain, to go into blends, and a lot of Balvenie and Glenfiddich is used in things like Grant's and the other blends that they have under their portfolio. But Glenfiddich and Balvenie are so popular on their own as single malt releases themselves that there's a lot of pressure on the stock that they can produce. So in 2007 they took the decision to build a distillery in the Girvan plant that was a single malt distillery. Now, there used to be one there already called Ladyburn, and I'm pretty certain that I've got a sample of that upstairs. So I'm going to have to check, because if I have, then I'm sticking it in this little run at Lowlands. I've completely forgotten about it, but I've got a feeling I've got one upstairs. So Grant and Sons built this distillery essentially for the sole reason of, we need single malt whiskey in our blends, and Glenfiddich and Balvenie already sell like hotcakes, so we need to be making it somewhere else. Let's build this distillery and let's make it ourselves. And they've got 8 stills in this distillery at Ailsa Bay, which they can tailor to make whatever they need. So if they want a nutty version, they can make that. If they want a sweet version, they can make that. If they want a peated version, which apparently they're only making 2 weeks in the year, they basically do this batch of peated whiskey, and that is what that gets their volume for what they need to be used in all the blends. But they can tailor, they can go, right, this week we want to make this type of whiskey, this week we need to make that because we need these stocks to go into the blends. So it's a fascinating process that they've got, and the capability that the master distiller has got to be able to go, right, we need this, we need that, and tailor to the demand that they need to satisfy the demand from the market is just, it's phenomenal, it's mind-blowing. And nobody really realistically thought that Ailsa Bay would ever be released. You know, I did the Glentalkers the other night, where 1% of that gets released as a single malt because the rest of it goes into blends. And the general consensus was Ailsa Bay, we'll be lucky if we ever see that as a single malt. All of a sudden, February of this year, Ailsa Bay turns up. And it's like, well, where did this come from? How did we manage to get this? So I am very, very happy to be able to get this from Will. This is absolutely fantastic because it's only just been released, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't think I was going to get hold of any of it because This is the version that they released is a peated version, so they don't make an awful lot of it. Like I say, I think it's 2 weeks in the year they make this peated version, and this is the one that they've got. And it seems to be quite a hefty amount, Will, as well. If you want this back once I finish, because I'm only having 2.5 CL, if you want the rest of this back, I'll happily send it you back. It's about 50 quid a bottle. I think Whisky Exchange was selling it for about 53, Whisky Shop was selling it for 55, so you're looking at about 50-55 quid a bottle. 70 CL bottle, 48.9%, which is a decent percentage as well. I don't think it's cask strength because it's a no age statement, but it's not far off. It's quite high, and it's very specific, being 48.9. It is 48.9, isn't it? Yeah, 48.9. I just need to double check because my head was going, it's not, Ben, it's not, you've got that wrong. I get a lot wrong, I know that. So yes, so basically, and apparently this is 2 different distillers that are then vatted together. So it's a very heavily peated version and one that's not quite as peated that are then vatted together to produce this. Brilliantly, and this is where it all kind of ties together when you sort of find things out and it refers back to something that you've done before. They mature this for 6 to 9 months in bourbon casks from Hudson Baby Bourbon. Now, Hudson Baby Bourbon, as if you've been following, was pretty special to me because that was the one that I did a couple of weeks ago where I announced Vicky's pregnancy with our 3rd baby. So as soon as I saw Hudson Baby Bourbon, I was like, yep, I'm down for this one. So the Hudson Baby Bourbon casks that they use are really, really small. So the reason they only do it for 6 to 9 months is because the whiskey is because it's smaller casks, there's more whiskey interacting with wood, because the maturation in a cask is all about the whiskey that's contact. So whiskey, this is wood of the cask, and it's all about the interaction with that and the kind of soaking in and coming out, and bringing the flavours out, the whiskey going in and bringing the flavours out. So if you've got a smaller cask, yes, you've got less whiskey in it, but technically more of it is in. Yeah, thanks, Holly. That's really useful. Having a drink of water while I'm talking. More casks that are smaller, you've got more whiskey interacting with the wood, so you've got more maturing. So what they have to do is keep a closer eye on these smaller casks. 6 to 9 months, when it's ready for what they need it for, they then transfer it into either virgin or first fill or refill bourbon casks to continue the maturation. So like I say, no age statement. I'm presuming probably no colour and no chill filtration. A lot of people make a song and dance, Morton Mike, if you watch he's got a big thing about E158 and everything like that. Personally, if it makes it taste better, then fair enough. If it's to the detriment of the whiskey, yes, but how are you going to know? I don't have as big a deal of it, but a lot of people much prefer it that it's no chill filtration and no colouring and none of this, none of that. It's purer, it's more honest, yeah, okay, fine. I get what you're saying, guys. I don't subscribe to that myself as in-depth as you do, but it would be preferable if it was, this is the whiskey, we've not added anything to it, we've not done anything with it, off you go, see whether you like it or not. But they're not releasing 2 versions of it to give you the choice, so I'll just take what they're giving me and see how it is. If it's rubbish, it's rubbish. Whether it's got colouring in it or not, I don't really think it's going to make that much of a difference. Anyway, I'm blabbering again. Maturation in the Hudson Bay bourbon cask, I was like, brilliant, that refers back to 2 weeks ago when I told you about Vicky being pregnant. So I am very, very intrigued to see what this is like, because it's obviously quite tricky to get hold of. Yeah, there's about half full, Will, so if you do want it back, I'll happily send it back to you. And I've got a little bit of water left, but if you just bear with me, I'll get some more out of it. Oh, I'm struggling. There you go. Fortunately, I've got one of those water pourers, so it's filtered, slightly chilled, but it shouldn't make too much of a difference. Plus, with my nattering on it, it'll be room temperature by the time I get to it. So, I am very intrigued to see what this is like. Now, one thing I also read about this that's been referenced to Ailsa Bay is when you talk about peatiness in whiskey, you talk about phenols parts per million, so ppm or ppm phenols per million. They're also referring to SPPM, which is sweetness parts per million. They're measuring it as that as well. Whether it's a marketing term or whether they have actually got some kind of scientific method of measuring this, I don't know. I didn't look too deeply into it, but they're using it as a term, so it might be something new that you'll find. Now, I said they do They do an estery version with, esters. Difficult to describe what that is. They do a nutty version, they do a sweet version, they do a peated version, of which this is. But straight away, I'm getting nuttiness to it as well as the peat. And the peat it's a nice sweet peat, and it's not too heavy, and it's a medicinal peatiness rather than the fiery smokiness. But there's definite nuttiness in there as well, kind of like hazelnuts, and a real sweetness, a real candy floss sweetness. You know, like when you're walking through a fun fair and you get that candy floss stand and you just get that waft of kind of cooked sugar, that sort of feel to it. And a bit of grassiness as well, actually, like fresh cut grass. It's quite summery. It's quite summery outside of that medicinal vibe. Oh, here's one that's evocative for you. It's like you're a child and you've fallen down in the summer. You've been playing in the garden on a hot summer's day and you've fallen down and you've hurt your knee, and your mum dabs a bit of TCP on your knee and then gives you some candy floss to make you feel better. That in a glass. You can use that, Ailsa Bay. You can use it on your tasting notes. I'll give you that one for free. Talking nonsense. But yeah, there's a really fresh vibe to it. And a kind of sea salt, sea air vibe as well. Now, I never would have said that's 48.9 in a month of Sundays. It's silky smooth. The peat isn't intense on the palate as it is on the nose, and it's kind of coming through now on the finish. But it's very, very gentle. There's a lovely sweetness to it. There's a really nice, rich mouthfeel. Doesn't need water. Doesn't need water at all. What there is there's a nice heat to it, but it supports it. It's not a back of the throat burn. It's a nice heat around your mouth, but it supports all the flavours that are in there. There's sweet. There's a gentle medicinal feel to it. There is a freshness to it as well. There's a nice maltiness as well. There's a fantastic balance of flavours. Do you know what? That is really, really bloody good. I wasn't sure what I was going to make out of this, because it sort of reading up on it, it almost felt like it was a bit of an afterthought in terms of, oh well, we'll stick one out to kind of keep the single malt drinkers quiet. You know, you can have this one, but we need it for all the blends. But actually, the balance on this is fantastic. The finish is not intense, but it does go on for quite a while. I've got to say, I'm a fan of the packaging as well. That is a really, really well balanced whiskey. There's bags of flavour in it. There's loads of stuff going on there. There's grass and hay, and a smokiness is there, but it's very, very gentle. It's more of the medicinal iodine, but again, that's sweet and soft. There is candy floss. There's kind of a sugared candy. There's a maltiness to it. There's almost a bit of chocolate on there as well, but like a milk chocolate, kind of a milk, you know, like dairy milk, fruit and nut, that sort of feel to it. It's a cracking whiskey. Surprised the hell out of me. And it doesn't need water. It really doesn't. I think if you added water to that, and I could be completely wrong, but I think if you added water to that, you're actually going to knock out all the complexity that's there, because everything is really, really well balanced. And I think if you put water in it, it's just all going to start filtering away a bit. That is very, very good indeed. I didn't think it was going to be that good. 50 quid? I think, considering how hard it is to get hold of it and how little there probably is of it, considering, you know, this is like a small batch single malt whiskey, I can't really argue with that price either. I think it's very, very good indeed. It'd be interesting to know kind of what the, maybe a bit more transparency in terms of what the ages are in it, because it is a no age statement. So how young is it to how old is it, that sort of thing. Obviously it's not going to be massively old because it was only built in 2007, but there is potentially kind of 8-year-old, maybe 5 to 8. I'd love to see how this goes when it gets older, whether it's got enough backbone in it to last 12, 15, 18 years. We wouldn't know, and it's obviously got to wait until it gets to that stage, but it's very, very good indeed. Absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend it. Thank you, Will, for the donation. very, very much appreciated, and a cracking whiskey to finish off the night with. Okay, tomorrow I think it's probably going to be, maybe not tomorrow, maybe day after, Auchentoshan and Bladnoch, because I can see them over there, but I'm going to have a quick look, see if I can find Ladyburn and a couple of the other closed down Lowland distilleries. What a nice way to finish off the weekend. I shall see you at the next one. Cheers.